Hello everyone and welcome to the second episode in my CSS variables mini-series. Now in this video we will be covering kind of an introduction to variables in addition to, we talked a little bit about them in the previous episode, but we're going to really be kind of fully defining and figuring out what variables are and what their uses are in CSS. So the first kind of concept we are going to talk about are color variables, but then there's also numeric value variables, like you can specify sizes and percentages and all that, and then you can also do animation variables. Basically anything that goes after a colon in CSS, for the most part, can be put in a variable for the most part. So we're going to go ahead and get started by opening up our index.html and our style.css, and then we will start up our live server by hitting the go live button. And then we will get our website here. So notice in the last episode we left off by having these three elements, all of which have text. And then here in our style CSS, we have set them all to use the color for this variable. And of course, like I said, we covered this in the last episode, but I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into why, for example, color variables are important. So like I said, you can have many elements on a website that all have some sort of color unified, like maybe a theme for the website, a theme color, the main kind of color that shows up. And then you don't want to have to retype this over and over and over. And notice another thing here is this is a hex color. Hex color is a hash followed by six alphanumeric kind of characters. But if we use, like I said, anything that goes after a colon, like here, you see there's a colon here, and then normally we would have this. We can actually also just use the RGB value instead. So if you know the red, green, blue, which is right here, that makes up this color, then instead of using this, you can just say RGB and then use that. And if I save this, notice it's the same color here. And if I make it more red, it changes to 255, it becomes redder. And if I change it back, it becomes gray or beigeish. And notice that again, it's updating on all three of the elements, and I only need to change it in one place. And that really is the beauty. Now, on top of that, for variables in general, you can actually also reap many more benefits in addition just to the fact that you have a value in one place that you don't have to change multiple times, is that you can actually use CSS to kind of augment this and make it so that certain styles are applied maybe when the screen gets to a certain size, or when something happens, like something gets hovered over. You can change all of the styles, that in a variable that could maybe make a ripple effect across the entire website. So maybe you, move to a mobile device and it will change some stuff. And then you can also use variables again for numeric values. So you can actually change the sizing or change the structure of your website. Like maybe if you're using a CSS grid layout, you could change the fundamental number of columns and rows when the screen gets smaller or something like that, which is absolutely amazing. And then in addition to that, we will be covering this in a few episodes, but you can actually also edit CSS variables in JavaScript. And JavaScript, if you've watched my Introduction to Web Development kind of tutorial series, or if you just know, is the fundamental building block for making websites interactive. Like HTML adds the content of the site, CSS will allow you to make the site look good, but ultimately it is 99% of the time JavaScript which adds all of the function to the website. That allows you to click a button, like maybe a dark theme button, and using JavaScript I can make it so that all of your website just turns dark, like a dark theme. And then you could even use variables for that. In fact, I'm already kind of foretelling this, but in the 6th episode we will make a simple dark theme kind of thing with CSS variables and JavaScript and all that good stuff. So yeah, that's pretty much the power of variables, and specifically color variables like this. Now, like I said, there are also numeric value variables that we can mess around with. So let's go ahead and get a taste of that. So what I am going to do is I'm going to first add a div with a class of red. So we want to make it red. And this is one way to write CSS. Like you want to specify your CSS classes in very small pieces that you combine in order to actually add meaningful styling. So I'm going to make this thing red. I'm going to make this thing half page width, and let's maybe make it that should be good. So a div with a class of red and half page. So I come in here and I could specify red elements have a background color, or have a background color of red. And then we could specify that half page elements. Elements have a width of 50 VH or VW, my bad. So VW means the viewport width or the size of the website. So this is the width, 50% of the width basically. Now notice nothing shows up after I save this, and that's the reason is by default divs will collapse to the size of the stuff inside them, and for now it has nothing inside it, so it has no height. So in order to actually get this thing to show up, we will probably want to apply a global style to all divs, giving them a height of at minimum, or a min height of maybe 100 pixels. So as soon as I save that, notice again this thing is taking up 50% of our viewport width, or 50% of our website width in this case, and it has a height of 100 pixels because that's the minimum height, and it doesn't have any reason to stretch farther, and then it has a background color of red. So again, none of this is just standard CSS here, none of this is variables yet, but notice that maybe we wanted to say create some sort of standard height. Now this is a little bit of an obscure example, but this is used specifically for grids, for example, to change the number of columns. But let's just say the standard height on our website is 100 pixels. So instead of using 100 pixels, I could again use the variable declaration var dash dash standard height, and nothing changes here because that's abstracting the height away into this here. Now let's just say, for example, we wanted to do something else with the standard height, like maybe make like a square. I don't know. This is just, again, I'm just making some sort of example. If you want to have something be a square, then you could say the min width, or you could even just say the width is the var standard height. And then so if I take this and I move it down there, oops, did not mean to do that. Then I could apply a square kind of class to this, and notice then the width of the thing would go into the same as the standard height. So this is a little bit of an obscure example, but this is just me mainly saying that, again, reinforcing the fact that anything or almost anything that goes after this colon here can be put into a variable. It doesn't have to be a color. It could be a size. It could be a animation, which we're about to get into in a second. It could be really anything. So again, that brings me into the animations. Now this is an example that requires you to know how to make a simple keyframe animation. It's not that hard. If you want a quick kind of example, you can check out my one of the videos in my CSS, the animations intro in my CSS animations miniseries as well that came before this one. So let me just quickly make a keyframes fade in animation, and let's just make it at 0%. The opacity and my indenting. The opacity is at 0, so it's at the opacity means the kind of the I actually don't know how to describe the ability to see the thing. So right now, if you set it to 0, it's completely invisible, and if you set it to 1, it's completely visible, basically. So at 100%, so at the end of the animation, we will have the opacity back at 1. And again, so for normally, we could just maybe animate all of our divs to come in like this. So we could say animation, and then we could say fade dash in, and then we could say 1s, and then we could say ease. So if I save this, again, if I reload, every time I reload, the square will fade in. Oh, okay. Every time I reload, the square will fade in, and then we could even, no, we're just gonna leave it with that. So that is the animation, but let's just say, for example, we wanted all special elements, which remember the special is this one, to also have this fade in. Well, notice now I have to copy this, and let's just say I want to make it standard, always 1 second, always ease. Well, again, I have to copy this animation 2 times now, and let's just say now I wanted to add it to the P. I'm going to have to copy it yet again. I'm going to have to go animation, fade in, 1s, ease, and this may not be too much of a hassle, but it really gets annoying. And let's just say, for whatever reason, now I don't want 1 second to be the standard loading time or the standard animation time. I want to make it 2. Well, now I have to go to every place where I made it, and I have to change it. Again, this is the classic use case for variables. So again, we can just say standard fade in animation, for example, and then we could just copy all the parameters here and save it. And then again, instead of changing it everywhere here, we could just say var, and again, dash dash standard fade in animation, and I can just take this and paste it everywhere where I would have used that animation, and again I save, nothing changes. 2 seconds animation for everything, but now what happens if I want to make it 1 second? It updates everywhere at once, and I only have to specify it here in the variable. Now, I guess one little, that was pretty much mainly what I wanted to cover, but one little note is that I didn't explain very well is this root here. This pseudo selector for root selects the root element, which if I'm not mistaken is the HTML. Yep. So the root element, it doesn't mean anything specific. It literally means it doesn't mean like a specific element, but it means the top element, which is always this HTML pretty much on a regular site. So this HTML will hold all of these variables, and that means we can use them everywhere across the website. Now, one thing you may have noticed already or may have started to catch on is CSS is extremely hierarchical. I don't know, I completely butchered the pronunciation, but it operates in much of a hierarchy. So basically, if you specify a style in this HTML, and then you change that style in the H3, it will take the style that is lower down, if that makes sense, because it's more specific. Like I'm saying, if I specify a simple style here, but I specify another one down here, it'll take this one. So same thing with variables, and that's what we're going to be getting into in the next episode is kind of overriding variables, because you can set variables here in this root here, but if I actually, and just a quick kind of sneak peek, if I change the variable, like for let's just say I wanted to make the P animate a little bit differently, I could change the variable for this P only. And I could say instead of it being 1 second, I could make it 2 seconds. And if I save this, now notice, again, these load in faster and then the paragraph. Like we can actually change the value of variables only for specific sections if we wanted to. Now again, that's just a very quick sneak peek. There's not going to be any explanation as to how this is used and all that, but I will get into it in the next episode. So if you want to see more videos like this, you can check out the playlist, which is linked in the description, where I've been uploading daily and I will continue to. If you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a thumbs up, subscribe and hit the bell icon for notifications whenever I post new videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.